Thanks everyone for joining us on this virtual roundtable today. There's no doubt there are some exciting times ahead of Staffordshire and that there's real opportunity ahead of us in this county as we move, hopefully, into the post-COVID era. We have a foot in both the North West and Midlands economies, and we're in a fantastic position to grow and consolidate that position as a nationally recognised centre of business, leisure, learning and innovation. So we're bringing this discussion to you as a partnership between Stoke-on-Trent Live, We Are Staffordshire and Staffordshire County Council. And the panel we've assembled to discuss some of the opportunities and challenges ahead are people with the best insight into what we need to do to continue to grow and achieve. So in no particular order, we have Councillor Alan White, leader of Staffordshire County Council, a graduate of the University of Liverpool, like me, and unlike me, of Sandhurst Royal Military Academy. He has a degree in genetics and a master's in business administration. He's been involved in politics since 2003 when he joined Lichfield District Council. 18 years on, and he's now leader of Staffordshire County Council and also runs two businesses. One of his roles is as CEO of Malvern Hills Science Park. Karen Dobson is Principal and Chief Executive of Newcastle and Stafford Colleges Group. Karen originally trained as a nurse and worked in the NHS for 13 years before moving into FE. In 2002, she joined Newcastle Underline College and in 2004 became Principal. She holds a health sciences degree from Coventry University, an MBA from Keele, and in 2019 was awarded an OBE for services to further education. Martin Smith is CEO of Bristol Group. He grew up watching the family business grow, and after graduating from Bath and gaining experience in the world of engineering, he came back to the Bristol fold. He worked on the shop floor, gaining all the skills and experience and knowledge necessary to run the business, and now he's CEO of its group of 4 companies. Emily Whitehead is founder of Simply Great Britain. She's lived in Staffordshire for most of her life and has spent the last 20 years building business networks and working as a business coach, mentor and trainer. She founded the Staffordshire Hour on Twitter and has worked with Destination Staffordshire for many years. She also founded Micro Business Awards UK and is entrepreneur in residence at Staffordshire University. And we have Robert Lawley, who's the director of the Staffordshire Chamber of Commerce Department for International Trade. His department is an issuing body for export documentation and a customs broker. The team's combined invoice value is around £250 million. And in a previous life, he was a civil servant and worked in the office of the Deputy Prime Minister. And I'm Mark Waddington. I'm the editor of the Sentinel and Stoke-on-Trent Live, as well as senior editor in charge of Staffordshire Live and Cheshire Live for Reach PLC. I've been in the industry for 16 years and was previously politics editor at the Liverpool Echo and news editor of the North Wales Daily Post. I began my career as a trainee reporter covering South Cheshire in 2006. So I think we'll get going. I don't think there's much in the way of housekeeping to mention. I'm pretty sure everyone will know where the fire exits and the toilets are. So if there are any questions, please drop them in the chat and we'll put them to our panel as we go. We should be set to finish at around 1:30. So we will make a start. So I think one of the things that a phrase we've all become very used to hearing lately is that of the new normal, and the idea of whether we're going to return to office working as we knew it, whether we're going to remain home working, whether there's going to be a mix. So I suppose the first question is, how do we capture the value of the new normal of home and office working? And I'd like to put that to Karen, please.
I'm perhaps not the best person to start with this, because obviously I think for my my business is about people, it's about students, and personally I don't think you can beat that face-to-face work with young people. That said, our institution, all colleges, all universities, we've come a long way in a short space of time. And I think, you know, the fact that we're able to bring this collection of people today, massive advantage. Yesterday evening, I had my board meeting with corporation members from all over Staffordshire via Zoom. So I think we'll very much want to retain the best of remote learning delivery, the various forms at the college. But I think for the age range that I work with, lots of 16 to 18 year olds, for example, about 5,500 across our 2 campuses, we need to be having them in the mix, the community, the socialisation, the sort of wider experience of being in a college environment. And you can't quite get that if you're on a team session or a Zoom. We've always used sort of online resources for students, and I think using particularly the Teams platform in colleges, we will retain a lot of benefits there. As far as staff are concerned, we've had a mixed approach over the last almost 18 months now, and some of that we'll retain for some of our support functions. But again, if you're a teacher, you need to be on site. I, as a manager, a principal, I like to be on site, and so I've spent as much time as I can on site through all the lockdowns, working with our vulnerable students, as well as obviously now where I'm just in work as normal. So in summary, we'll retain the best bits, but from a college perspective, can't wait to get back to something very near normal.
Sure. Now, what does anybody else think? Are there elements of the businesses or organisations you're involved in where it's actually improved the situation to be working from home, or areas where it's really proved the problem? Rob?
It's really interesting what Karen said. I mean, down here at the Chamber of Commerce, part of what we do, as you mentioned, is actually processing customs declarations and export documentation. So a certain section of the Chamber have been in pretty much all the time anyway, making sure that the PPE comes in and the food and everything crosses the borders. So, but we've actually, to cope with social distancing, we've stripped out a lot of the desks. So there physically aren't enough desks now for all the members of staff to come in, and we like that. We like the blend. We find it's a lot more productive as well. Doing Zoom meetings, one doesn't have to travel 35, 40 an hour, however long to get to a meeting, and then the return journey back. So we are finding that the meetings are being particularly more productive. And I think that the reason why I did want to jump in was that from an international perspective, when this all started kicking off last year and everybody was going into lockdown, we were very keen to keep our engagement with our overseas network. We work with the Chambers of Commerce overseas and the embassies, the consulates, the high commissions in just about every corner of the world. And they were so keen and so eager to engage with us that we've actually engaged with more businesses overseas, more chambers, more consulates overseas, because we used to take trade missions out. We all over the world, people would shake hands, do business deals, etc. But now it's all being done on Zoom. The companies are saving expense. The carbon footprint is better. There are companies that actually can't wait to get back, into the business class lounges, etc., and start planning and doing the business deals. But again, really representing and reflecting on what Karen was saying, we'll keep a blend. I think a lot of businesses from an international perspective are quite happy to do their business from their home in Stoke-on-Trent and Staffordshire, rather than spending hours and hours and days and weeks travelling the world.
Sure. Emily, what about in your field? How's it worked for you?
So I have to say the last 18 months has been really interesting. So in my own work, just working as a business coach, it's meant that I've been able to work with many more businesses than I perhaps ever would have done, because I spent a lot of time in the car, just really echoing what Rob said, spending a lot of time getting to meetings, having meetings, driving back, writing up meetings. You actually get a lot less work done. So from that perspective, I could say that I, within privately and within various programs, some with Staffordshire University, some with Skills Hub, have been able to offer more help to more businesses. So that is valuable, obviously. I think what I'm hearing, though, from employers and when I've worked with organisations is that there is a challenge also about employee engagement, thinking about how people are coping with working from home, and probably the need for the blended approach to evolve. As Rob said, they quite like the fact that there's less desks, and they like that feeling of flexibility, and certainly meetings are brilliant because you can stick a time limit on them and get stuff done. But I think there is also something to be said about the way in which we lead in businesses and the way in which we support people to work from home, thinking about rather than task-driven work, thinking about results-driven work. So allowing people to be a little bit more autonomous in the way that they work. And also being really aware of the exhausting nature of Zoom. I mean, it's brilliant to be here today, and I have lived a lot of my life on Zoom for the last 18 months, just like everybody else, still am. But actually, I've started to go out to a few meetings and they take up a load of time, you know, and when we've spoken to delegates of various programs we've delivered, they love the fact they can take part in programs and training without the hour at the front and the hour at the back, and then the cup of tea, and then they're trying to get, you know, over the motorway journey they had, and it turns into a whole day instead of a really useful 3 hours. So yeah, I think a really good blended approach. Keep that carbon footprint down, which is kind of my thing, it's everybody's thing these days, but also understanding that maybe we can get more work done and be more productive in general by being online at least some of the time.
Absolutely. I mean, there are things about it that you do wonder why we didn't do them before. You know, why we. I mean, I don't think I'd ever used Zoom until I had to start doing, you know, quizzes with you know, staff on a Saturday night and things, because nobody could go out and do anything. And I never expected how much time I would spend on it. But no, it does save a lot of time, and you still manage to develop relationships, you know, with people even virtually. But I mean, Martin, in your area, what obviously in an industry like yours, I suppose there are some things that just can only be done on site, on the ground, in the you know, in the workshop or whatever. But what elements of your business have changed or adapted? Have you actually seen there's been any value to this kind of interaction with people rather than the traditional having to go out and see clients and partners?
Probably I'm in the same camp as everyone else. There's a place for both methods of working. I'm probably quite old-fashioned. I quite like to see people face to face. I really miss shaking hands with people. Bizarre. I think probably the big change for us is that people's wants and needs have changed. I think a lot of people have reflected over the last couple of years about, you know, what am I doing with my life? Where does my career fit into that? And I think without a doubt, even though we have a lot of people who have to be on site, we're an operations-led business. People now have expectations about a little bit more flexibility, and with a workforce of sort of over 500 people, it's a matter of trying to establish how you get that flexibility without losing some of the regimented discipline we need to hit production schedules. So it's still a bit of a balance, and it's probably still evolving a little bit. And as we take on new staff, just understanding kind of how the labour market shifted, and it's not all about salary anymore and holidays. That's a given. You've got to be competitive in those respects, but it's some of the other softer issues that we can work with people. I think one other thing I just wanted to comment on that we sort of haven't touched on so far. You know, a lot of businesses like ours in Staffordshire are still in rural locations, and it's probably only about 4-5 years ago that we got a really good fibre connection into the business. And before that, we had real issues running remote mail servers. Sometimes even the website would slow down a bit. We couldn't put our business management systems in the cloud because access wasn't good enough. Anyway, I thank my lucky stars that infrastructure was put right, because I genuinely do not know how we would have survived. I think we were running at something like 2 meg internet previously. The business would have just come to a complete standstill. So I'm grateful that happened, but I dare say probably the nature of the sort of rural locations throughout Staffordshire, there might be some people that maybe have suffered as a result of that. So for me, it's really important that we continue to roll out that infrastructure.
Absolutely. I mean, for many years, certainly when I've worked for papers that have covered rural areas, the difficulties that certainly small businesses had trying to actually do what we've all been trying to do now in terms of, just using the internet for the daily trading and not being able to get, still some places being on dial-up connections and things. You just can't run a business like that, can you? So you're absolutely right how lucky we were that, well, I don't think anyone could say we're lucky the pandemic arrived when it did, but I think on a business front it could have been a lot worse had that infrastructure not been there, certainly. And Alan, so How has the new normal affected the world of politics then? I mean, you've got I suppose from a staffing point of view, you've got huge actual paid service for who are going to be spread all over, working across many different departments, and then you've got the added factor of the political side of it. How's that worked?
It's been unique, I have to say. Some of the sort of normal checks and balances we've had as part of the democratic process have had to be put to one side, and it's relied on personal relationships that we had in place before the pandemic kicked off. I'm not quite sure how we would have managed if we had to put in place new relationships and trying to establish new relationships using this methodology. I think the routine business of council has got on brilliantly. The checking in, making sure stuff is happening, and the monitoring type meetings go on really well. But I think the new normal lacks, and let's say the new normal is a blended approach, then the component that requires human interaction is that of the non-verbal communication in meetings. So, for example, I could propose a completely off-the-wall concept. And in a meeting room with people in it, I can actually observe people rolling their eyes, tutting, and going, what on earth is this fella talking about? On Zoom and Teams, of course, the majority of the people in the call will be off the screen, so I can't get any of that feedback to sort of guide those conversations. The water cooler chats, I love that. I'm a politician, I love an audience. So, it's that sort of having those conversations and that engagement I think we do miss. But the opportunities it provides, I think, are those that Staffordshire offers in sort of bucket loads, which is you can choose where you live far more now. So to Emily's point about going out to meet clients, yeah, I'm sure Emily's going to have to continue to go out to meet clients, but given the fact it's going to be less frequently, then you can choose better where you live. And also that then allows you to choose about your business premises and how much space you need to occupy. Certainly in those businesses that don't require a manufacturing presence, you could potentially downsize, because instead of 12 people being in simultaneously, you only need 4. And that sort of plays to the place that is Staffordshire, that ability to provide small bespoke opportunities for businesses across the county to make use of what is, as you coined it, the new normal.
Well, that's that brings us on to the next issue. So maybe you can lead us into this one. So bearing all that in mind, as you say, the ability to be based really wherever you want to be, given that we have some pretty major cities within very short distance of us, are cities still the right places to be based then now, or do you think that in the future people will start thinking, well, you know what, the quality of life I can get by living in in a rural part of Staffordshire is of a much greater value than trying to live in the middle of a city and all that comes with that? So do we need to be in cities anymore? Do we think we can move away from that model?
There's a role for cities, that's for sure, and certainly in terms of some of the density of connections you find in cities. So for example, the financial services sector, you need to be close to each other to have that innovating process over a lunchtime. Arguably some of the legal profession needs to be close together in order to have that density of connections. But if you look at business creation and business startups for people about my age, in their 50s, you'll find that there's a sort of halo around the conurbations where new businesses are being created all the time. And it's businesses where people's brains are required rather than their presence. And they think, you know what, I'm fed up of commuting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up my own little business in, say, Lichfield or Tamworth or Burton, and I'll commute into and out of Birmingham once a week, or the same in the north of the county for Leek and places like that. North commute into and out of Manchester once a week, and I can get everything done in that single visit, but I don't need to be doing that commuting. I can have the wonderful quality of life. The key thing for us as a county council is to make sure that the digital infrastructure is in place, and Martin mentioned that, having to wait some time to get the digital infrastructure in place. So I've been having conversations with BT or OpenReach about improving that digital infrastructure, because we've got a few places where we still are quite hard to reach. And I'm afraid to say it remains to be the moorlands. It remains challenging because of its rurality and the distance between cabinets and people's premises. So yeah, still a lot to do, but I think there's a great opportunity in this time that we've got.
Does anybody else think that we will start to see people thinking, well, you know, let's give it a go, moving out into areas outside of the main cities? Or do we think that are there things about living in cities that some people, I suppose, just won't want to give up? But can you see a boom, you know, in terms of thinking about the connectivity that we've got here, you know, the ease of access to major cities? Does that place Staffordshire maybe more than other places, you know, at the top of the pile for locations where people might start moving out to from major cities? I mean, Rob?
Yeah, I think going back probably 12, 18 months now, the best, well, possibly the best phrase I actually heard was, I'd like to say it was mine, but it wasn't. I heard it from somebody, was work is no longer a place that we go to, it's something that we do. And that really resonated with me. And I think building on what Alan said about, you know, that there's a halo around the conurbations. And yeah, I think with our, you know, we've got the Peak District, we've got some fantastic open spaces, some beautiful rural communities, then Stoke-on-Trent and Staffordshire are going to be prime for people actually setting up businesses there, and maybe not commuting, you know, if you can commute once or twice a week into the city centre, i.e. Stoke-on-Trent or Manchester or Birmingham, then yeah. And I think that's also being borne out by what we're seeing across the housing market. Lets and sales are, you know, they're skyrocketing. The housing market is booming. So yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. I think there's going to be a lot more people actually using this as an opportunity. I think it was Martin who said as well, you know, about reevaluating their life, their goals, what they want from life, rather than it's just all about the salary. And people will actually be looking for a better quality of life, which can undoubtedly be found in this region.
So I suppose in terms of the quality of life question then, you know, and that work-life balance, so what are the things that we think we've got here that that other places just can't offer? I mean, Emily, what if you had to sell Staffordshire to somebody, what would be the three things that you just cannot get anywhere else that you can only get here?
Well, for a start off, I can't stick to three.
Well, that's good.
So I'm a bit of a fan. I'm very lucky to live in a rural part of Staffordshire, and just noticing in my own village the amount of houses that are, you know, being transacted, lots of people coming in from nearby bigger towns and cities moving into the village. So that has been a real theme for the last 18 months. So that's exciting, and clearly people are taking that opportunity. I would also say, when we think about how we work, is there is still a real need for networking. There's a real need for that human interaction. I think we've already all alluded to that. And so there's things like, I think we need that mix of having little enterprise hubs. There's obviously Staffordshire University, and there's places like the Foxlow and Leek and places like that that are offering hot desking or an opportunity to maybe access some super fast broadband. So absolutely, I think I'm right in saying that Staffordshire is one of the best connected counties in the UK for super fast broadband, but there are little pockets and holes where people are trying to run businesses, and I work with some of those people, and that is a real challenge. So keeping making sure that those little hubs, which I think Staffordshire is really good at, that create little communities where people can, somebody called it the water cooler moment. You do need to be able to say, is that a really good idea, or is that a really hopeless idea? Do you think that would work? Does that look right to you? I've just developed that, you know, portfolio, or I've updated my websites. Just those little things that we do lose. You know, I've got 2 dogs to talk to in my office quite often, and it's not quite as inspiring as it would be to talk to other people in a network. So I think Staffordshire's really good at that, creating those little market town pockets, little hubs. The universities both are doing some really interesting work around that, to make sure that it becomes a community and a place to live, which I think Staffordshire is really good at. I think people are warm and welcoming, and I think we're really good at connecting each other. I think there's lots of pockets, and I think that is one of the real added value benefits of working in Staffordshire, because people really are happy to help and network and work together. So I think that's really important.
And Karen, in terms of students, I mean, you must see some go off to, you know, move away from the area for obviously, you know, degrees and other training needs that they might have. Do you think in the future that will retain more people locally, that if the jobs and the opportunities are here, or do we think we'll always probably naturally lose a lot of people out to bigger areas? What do we need to do to make sure that young people who are going through training and degrees and whatever then come, either stay or come back?
I think from a college perspective, it's very important for us that we don't only sell that sort of staying local sort of picture. So, I mean, I think last year our students went to 92 different institutions. And the reality is you have got these concentric circles of lots of our students go to Kiel, Staffordshire, Wolverhampton, Coventry, and very few go to Edinburgh or to Falmouth. I think for me, picking up what other people have said, I was born in Burslem and I don't work very far away from Burslem, but now I live in a rural part of Staffordshire, and I think you want different things at different times in your life. Now, city living would be a horror for me personally at my time, my time of life. But I can see how for young people, the buzz of a city living for a few years might be absolutely what they want, what they need, gives them the experience, the connection, allows them to mix in perhaps a broader creative environment. If they had stayed very local. But I'm always amazed how Staffordshire has something that draws people back. And some of that's intangible. It is about the people, it's about the place, the variety of offer here. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. If somebody goes away for 5-10 years, perhaps starts to have a family and think, the best place for me to live, work and bring up a family is in that heart of the country in Staffordshire, because we are so accessible. But I think it's important that Staffordshire always has ambition to be something that really punches above its weight. And sometimes, I can say this because I'm from the area, sometimes I have been a bit frustrated that we're sort of a little bit forgotten. I can't tell you how many times I've had to explain that we're Newcastle under Lyme and not upon time. Yeah, exactly. So, again, I think, as an employer, I want our college to be the best in the country, and we are one of the best in the country. And so we're a good place to come and study. And, there's many employers in our area that have got just that mindset. And that's a great attraction for people to stay and study and live and work in the area.
Sure. And Martin, in terms of your business, I mean, you've obviously worked away and come back. Do you, in terms of recruitment, are you? I suppose you'll be bringing people in from all over the place, won't they? Dependent on the skills that they have. And are you actually finding that people are moving here from other areas to come and work for you, or do you have still quite a local core workforce? What's your mix, would you say?
Generally, it's a really local core. And it's one of the great things about this area. It's just a really nice place to live. The cost of living compared to cities is considerably lower. We're able to draw on quite a wide radius in terms of mileage, but people still generally have a pleasant and fairly straightforward commute. So our pool of labour is generally, I'd say, within a sort of 20-mile radius is where 80% of it comes. I think typically we find that people, probably where we're recruiting at higher levels of the business, sometimes we reach a little further. Yeah. But I definitely think the perception of living in this area has changed a lot. I remember back to my days in university, kind of mid to late 90s. The guys I was at university with, well, you're off to Staffordshire, that's, sorry about that, chap, kind of thing. Whereas now, I think there's quite a lot of them thinking, yeah, he probably got that right, because he's paid half what he has for his house and it's 10 times the size. And kind of all those guys that are in the really big cities, I was with a lot of people who ended up in London. They're all about, how do I get out of the city now? And I think that marks quite a significant change. And I think it's something we'll continue to see. But from a personal point of view, I'm both an employer and an employee. I've got a fairly narrow frame of reference other than my time at university. I've lived in a village outside Uttoxeter, and I've lived in central Paris, which are kind of quite sort of both ends of the spectrum. And probably, you know, as a young man living in central Paris was pretty good fun. It was very difficult to balance the books, certainly at that. I absolutely love the kind of rural life in Staffordshire, but there's so much going on as well. And I think there's a lot of things that put Staffordshire on the map. Yeah, just anecdotally, there's one of our biggest customers. He's constantly been saying, as soon as we're out of lockdown, I want the next monthly review meeting at Alton Towers. Doing, and these are guys based down in Surrey. It's got that kind of reputation. Obviously, JC have invested a tremendous amount in the area we're in. The new golf and country club there, that's attracting all sorts of personalities all the time. Anyone who's sort of into social media, there's all sorts of stars coming in and saying, wow, this place is fantastic. And I think it's people that traditionally haven't seen Staffordshire as a force, and I think we're definitely on the front foot.
Absolutely. And so, if we do start seeing more and more people wanting to move here from elsewhere, and people maybe thinking about starting up businesses here of any scale, how competitive can we be, as an area in terms of coming here to people, and what might currently we need to add to the offer just to give us that little bit of an extra edge? Are there any areas that we think, whether it's digital connectivity that we've spoken about before, any kind of economic relief programs or incentives, what kind of things do we think would really help us really make it even more of a tempting offer for people who are maybe rooted in other parts of the country? I mean, Alan, what would you think about that?
So my day job is persuading people to come and locate somewhere, and so the key thing to that is the hygiene factors. It's less about the premises, because premises are ubiquitous around the country. It is how good are the schools that your children are going to be attending? How good's the sort of the nice things that people have as part of their day-to-day lives, which we've described already? And how can I get sufficient skilled employees to make sure that my business can fly? And I think I'd probably defer to Karen on this, because this is an issue across the piece now. Businesses are making decisions around where they locate, not just based on all the nice things and the support they can have available, but being certain that there's a sufficient supply of skilled people to come into their businesses. And I know that the FE sector is working really, really hard to address this. My son is an apprentice engineer at IMI Engineering in Fradley, chose not to go to university, having an absolutely brilliant time, because each month he's learning something, and at the end of the month they give him beer tokens and money to run a car. So it's and then reshape his car according to the latest thing he smacked into. But that's another story. But there are great opportunities here, and making sure that the FE sector and the apprenticeship piece is adequately supplied is an important component of the decision to locate here.
Karen, you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, Alan's spot on there. I think I'm very pleased that it seems that the current government have very much woken up to the important part that further education plays in making sure that young people get appropriate training when they leave school, 16 to 18, but that actually FE's always been that place that you keep coming back to for further training, for higher level training. Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent have just put a bid in for an Institute of Technology, which is a collaboration. Our college is actually leading on that bid, but it's a collaboration between ourselves, other FE institutions and Keele University, and some key employers, shaping those higher level technical training opportunities that people will need multiple times in their lives as we go forward, because there aren't the jobs for life that perhaps there were few decades ago. So we're very excited about that and really hope that we get that across the line, because that's sort of working in partnership with employers. Employers don't want to have to, waste their time in the detail of designing qualifications, but they know what they want in terms of a skill set, whether that's practical or technical skills or the softer skills. And I think that sort of IoT initiative is a good example of that. I think from an employer point of view, around being attractive and attracting to the area, we've made a huge number of appointments to various roles in our college over the last few months, more than we've ever done. And some of those were at a reasonably senior level. And I'm really pleased to say that on many occasions we were able to grow our own talent and actually appoint to higher level jobs from within, because of the focus that we have on training. And I think particularly young people now, they are after a balanced life. They want a good job with career opportunities to support them and training, but they also want that work-life balance as well. And I think employers that can have that in the mix, that ongoing training, and be attractive when you are sort of advertising, particularly at, I think Martin mentioned senior posts. Particularly senior posts, sometimes you do have to look further afield. So if you're able to access, you're an employer able to access training locally, and you can offer that sort of work-life balance in the community where these people potentially live, well, I think that's a really good situation to be in.
Sure. And Martin, on that, any thoughts about how we do more to establish, get more businesses coming here? Have you you must talk to clients all the time and maybe aren't as au fait with Staffordshire as some, and is it selling itself to people? Can you see particular sectors growing at a greater rate? The sector you're in, for example, has this area got the building blocks for helping your sector grow in this region?
I think probably following on from what everyone else has said, it's about getting the right skills in, and I think that is something that we acknowledged probably 12 years ago. And like Alan, I'm massively in favour of the apprenticeship schemes. There was a period of time where probably too many people went off to university during some previous administrations, where it was kind of really encouraged, probably where it wasn't necessarily suitable. And we're still seeing people come out of university with £40,000 worth of debt, no sort of guaranteed job. So we really set about the apprenticeship scheme about 11 years ago now, and I think we've put about 130 odd apprentices through our scheme. And looking back, it was a big investment. It's probably the best thing we've ever done. It's enabled us to bring people in and train them into the ways we want them working. What we're trying to do now is push that through to higher apprenticeships. So we're offering 15 of those this year. And also the people that show the right aptitude and desire and commitment, we're now looking at putting those guys through degrees as well, to give them an opportunity. So as the business grows, I want to keep a really good blend of bringing in outsiders to shape the direction of the business, as well as bringing people up through the ranks. And we're starting to see the first ones that started that apprenticeship reach the sort of the upper parts of middle management now in their late 20s. And I've got no doubt some of those will be directors of the future. So I think getting the right skills is probably the biggest challenge. And I think the back end of this year, we're going to see that challenge greater than it's ever been. I think we're already finding recruitment quite difficult. From everyone I speak to, that's a nationwide issue. Bringing it back to Staffordshire, I don't see any reason why we can't attract further investment here. We've just had a tremendous amount of support from various bodies in Staffordshire to help us get up and running. We've signed a sort of 9-year agreement with INEOS to manufacture chemical or metal components for the chemical industry in Stafford. Right. That's a building that's going up now. I'm not saying it wouldn't have happened without the degree of support we've had, but it has been instrumental in helping it happen on time and with some degree of financial assistance. But again, that's creating jobs, and that will create further opportunities in an industry that we're probably not renowned for in the area. I don't see any reason why we won't see a lot of other businesses doing the same thing.
Yeah, sure. And it's interesting there you said, I mean, because obviously, you know, in recent months there were, in recent years there've been quite high profile campaigns elsewhere, for example, like the Power Up the North campaign, you know, Northern Powerhouse, that kind of thing. Hasn't really been anything along the same lines done on behalf of the Midlands, or does it feel that maybe, are we kind of all speaking as the Midlands broader than just Staffordshire, obviously, with one voice, or do you think there's still a bit of competition? Maybe we need to kind of coalesce around the Midlands to reap the real benefits for places like Staffordshire. Alan, what do you think?
Well, the answer to that is yes, but it's a little bit quiet at the moment. There is a body called the Midlands Engine, which has been set up precisely to act as a counterbalance to the Northern Powerhouse. There are certain opportunities set out in the Midlands Engine which are particularly relevant to Staffordshire. Something called the North Midlands Manufacturing Corridor, which will see the line from the A50, A500 joined together, connecting Kiel to Nottingham. Some great manufacturing businesses along that corridor, from Bentley to, as you know, from where you're based, Mark, to JCB, to Toyota, connecting the high value manufacturing that goes on there and pushing forward with the research driven agenda that Kiel and Nottingham have. So there is work afoot to address that, to connect the Midlands and provide that counterweight, but there's quite a long way to go yet. It's still sort of early days for that in many respects.
Emily, Rob put his hand up. Go on, Rob.
I think we had her hand up before mine, so Emily.
Oh, well, I'll be quick. I want to kind of reiterate some of what's already been said. I suppose I feel that Staffordshire doesn't always have the loud enough voice. So I've delivered programmes and been part of delivery teams in the Northern Powerhouse. And that's very coordinated. They're doing some great things. It's very interesting in the way that they support business. But I've also delivered a lot of programmes, especially over the last 18 months in Staffordshire. So through Staffordshire University, we did the Small Business Leadership programme and the Lead to Grow programme, which was from, you know, a sort of a national programme that was delivered locally. And obviously both the universities have got Staffordshire's got its Innovation Enterprise Zone, and Kiel has got the Business Hub up there as well. So there's actually a lot going on. There's lots of innovation going on in Staffordshire, and there's lots of opportunities. A lot of the students at the universities very actively involved in commercial business. So I love the fact that Staffordshire, I think, is very good at that, is getting those students in there to work with businesses as part of their courses to really get that practical experience, and also to really start to learn what it's like to work and live in Staffordshire too, while they're just being students. I know that when I was a student in the early 90s, it was just all about the very cocoon student life. I don't remember ever having to have smart clothes for university in order that I might be interacting with people in business. And I think my son goes off to Liverpool in September, and he's taking a suit because he's already been told that he will be doing stuff with enterprise as well as, you know, in jeans or whatever. So I think that has been a change, but I'm not sure we shout about it loud enough. There's some amazing stuff going on around Staffordshire, and I think the louder we can be about how we work with our regional partners, Birmingham, as you say, South Cheshire, Manchester, having all those connections is vital, because I think measure for measure we're better. But I'm not sure we necessarily always say it loud enough. But I think that's part of what we're doing here today, and the conversations that are going on, just to make sure that we're really clear about the opportunities to keep students here, to provide employment, to find, you know, to develop the skills that employers want, but also, you know, the kind of innovation work that's going on in Staffordshire, which sometimes maybe is a little bit quieter than it needs to be.
Okay, and Rob?
Yeah, I was just going to kind of echo what Alan was saying about the Midlands Engine, and this has been set up to kind of counteract and be our own Northern Powerhouse. But it's just not quite got the traction that the Northern Powerhouse has got at the moment. But it definitely will get there, and there are steps being taken up now. I mean, there's a lot of activity now around the Commonwealth Games, which is going to be held in Birmingham. That's all ramping up. That is pointing focus and direction on the West Midlands, not the Wet Midlands, as I mentioned earlier. But we've also recently, when I say we, the Department for International Trade, have actually appointed some overseas champions now for the Midlands engine. So they are specifically looking at promoting the Midlands engine, and obviously Staffordshire is a massive part of that. And I think also just what Emily was saying as well, you know, we don't shout about it enough. You know, we are Staffordshire, we are part of the Midlands engine, and we do need to be really, really proud of that. And there's loads of work going on. People have already mentioned about the universities, the colleges, etc. And, you know, down at the Chambers of Commerce, we're helping companies set up their own businesses. And people reevaluating their lives. We've worked with about 300 people that want to set up their own businesses as a result of COVID, as a result of wanting to do something different, and that will have a big impact. And again, going back to what Alan was said, it's not just about where the office space is. There's office space, you know, from Land's End to John O'Groats. It's about what sets us up as being different. It is the niceties, it's the schools, it's the restaurants, it's the living spaces, it's the urban environment. So I think we're in an absolutely fantastic place going forward. I really do.
And how do you think, just a question here that I've got, how do you think that the way that things are changing, and maybe the way that people are setting up, as you said, look, more people looking to set up small businesses, how might our town centres, I'm thinking of Stafford, Stone, places like that, how might they need to adapt to complement that? You know, what kind of local infrastructure might we need to see in place to you know, whether it's meeting space, things like that? Emily, you see? Yeah.
Can you see my hand was up at that point?
Okay.
I think there's a huge amount that we can do to support those startup businesses. I feel like there needs to be plenty of opportunity in market town centres and other town centres and more urban areas where businesses can find affordable premises to set up, whether that's retail space, eating space, hospitality space. Obviously hospitality has been hit hardest in the last 18 months, or one of the hardest sectors that have experienced that. So I think we need to make sure that the infrastructure in our town centres are really pleasant places to be, and not dominated by high rents or a lack of innovation to allow some of those really interesting independent businesses. I think micro and independent business startups is a huge sector across Staffordshire, and we just need to give them maximum opportunity to be there on the high street, to be there in town centres, in our market towns, so that those areas aren't dominated by, you know, high charging landlords, high rents, that kind of thing. I mean, for some of you will all know, Leek, for example, has got a thriving independent retail and hospitality environment, which has, I think, been one of the leading lights across Staffordshire. Lichfield is another one, and I'm going to have missed out other places, so I apologise immediately. But Leek is one that I know pretty well. And I think that kind of focused attraction of small startup businesses who have managed to stay open. There's lots of them that had to completely close, and they've stayed in business, and they're back and they're open. And I think that kind of incubator and that kind of support means that, you know, Leek is now a place where everybody wants to move. It's an experience to live there, and it's full of independent businesses. So yeah, we just need to focus on making sure that those high streets are welcoming of those small independent businesses, as well as big names when we need them.
Yeah, sure. Rob, you have any thoughts on this?
So yeah, absolutely. Similar to Alan, I'm a gentleman of a certain age, and I remember about 10 or 15 years ago, people started talking to me about the shopping experience. And I think, you know, what is the experience about the shopping? You go to the shop, you buy what you want, and then you come home. That's it. Yeah. But it's so not. It isn't. I'm a massive convert, and I'm going to pick on Emily as well, because I go to the Sunday supplement, and you know, the first Sunday of every month. It's absolutely fantastic. but I don't go there to buy something. I actually go there because I like walking around. I like the market. You can sit outside, you can have a cup of coffee. On a day like this, even better, you can sit outside and have a cup, a glass of local beer. And it's about the experience, and that is what we really, really need to do. So I think from somebody like me who can be converted to just going to the shop, buying something and coming home, to actually making 3, 4, 5 hours out of it. If you told me I'd be doing that 10 years ago, I'd have thought you were crazy. But it's about the experience.
Very much so. Martin, you a fan of shopping or not?
I'm a massive shopping fan. I think Alan was good to go there. I'm quite happy to defer to Alan.
Thanks, Martin. Like Rob, I shop like an exocet missile seeks out its target. Just get in there, get it, off, straight back out again. But let's just think about how the high streets evolved over the decades, really. If we go back 100 or so years, the high street was a place of manufacture. It's where candles were made, pills were pressed, meat was butchered, bread was baked. Things were produced in the high street and then put on a shelf and bought by people who came in. It then became effectively just a showroom and a storage facility. You showed what you had inside the shop in the window, had all the stuff stored around the back. People walked in and got it. And now, as Emily pointed out, with towns from as far apart as Leek to Lichfield, they become destinations. And that gets Rob and people like me to go into these places and say, well, actually, I'm going to hang around for a while, have a coffee, have a mooch, see what the sort of going on the tourist trail. By the way, in Lichfield on the tourist trail, you can see the place where the last person was burnt at the stake in England. That's a claim to fame. So it's there's a lot to do in our towns and high streets, but we've just got to get away, I think, from necessarily focusing on and trying to recreate the high street of the 1970s and the 1980s. And remember that high streets constantly go through evolution. This is another evolution of the high street. Let's push forward with that Leek type model. They've done the same in Ledbury when they got a Michelin star restaurant in there. Following in behind that was artisan bakers, specialist butchers and all that sort of thing. So because it created that destination, people follow those destinations as part of the tourist trail. So some great opportunities, but let's not try and recreate the past. It's got to be looking forward to the future.
Yeah, sure. Okay, great. And just a question I've got here from someone. How can Staffordshire increase its reputation as the place for people to enjoy fulfilling experiences in a post-COVID society? Who wants to take that? That's a question I
have a go.
Go on.
I think probably it's the bit we've already touched on. I think there's quite a lot of voices that are putting Staffordshire forward and extolling its virtues, but I definitely feel it's really fragmented. And I think just creating the right forum to lend the weight of all the people that are here today and lots of other people. I know a lot of people that run businesses similar sort of size to ours. I suppose you'd say at the sort of top end of the SME type business, and we employ a lot of people across the region. And by harnessing all of those people in one forum, I feel like we can actually get a really loud message across. There's a few things that I've learned on this call today, to be honest, which is I'm sort of quite embarrassed to say that it's things that are going on that I've not been aware of. But I think that probably is symptomatic of the fact we've not really put together one unified voice. And I think that's quite simply that's the best thing for putting forward all the strengths of Staffordshire going forwards. And I'm not sure who coordinates that or where that originates, but I think that's what's needed.
So as a brand, then you think we need to have a really kind of clear Staffordshire brand that people, when you think Staffordshire, you think of a certain thing. The way when you think of Liverpool or Manchester, there are certain iconography that come to mind. Is that what we need? Do we need a kind of a sleek kind of marketing opportunity to sell to the world? Is that what we're maybe missing, Emily?
Yeah, I am a marketeer. That's what I do. Yes, I think it does. I think there needs to be a clear brand personality. Something. What do the people from Yorkshire say? It's God's own country, and that's
as a Lancastrian by birth, I can tell you that is not true.
Right. Okay. So immediately, I've hurled myself into some hot spots. But I think we really need to find the confidence to feel really proud of what the county has. It's got the National Memorial Arboretum, it's got St George's, it's got the brewery, National Brewery, and a whole host of other national icons in the county, which we don't necessarily hear. I was very excited yesterday to hear Uttoxeter mentioned on Radio 4 when they were advertising the Olympics and talking about Adam Peaty, because it's, you know, and I remember as a child, you know, if Staffordshire was ever mentioned on Blue Peter, somebody from Staffordshire won a prize or something happened, you know, literally going to squeal to my mum because, you know, it was a county nobody talked about. And certainly when I've talked in it from a destination management point of view, and we've talked about the tourism, you know, that county, we do not want to be the county people drive through on their way to the Lake District or on their way down to Devon.
Yeah.
We want to be where they stop. And I think we don't want just kind of polish, but I think the substance is there. I think there is a county which has it all. It has all the elements. It has, it's imperative that we make sure that sustainability is at the heart of whatever Staffordshire does. And I think it's imperative that we keep people, places and planet as the core of it. But I also do think some kind of brand voice, some clear message that you can work, rest and play in our county. And that includes all the things that everybody's talked about today, the work-life balance, attracting the really big businesses and the big attractions, focusing in on independence and all the stuff in between. But yeah, I'd like to see a clearer brand across all the areas that Staffordshire has to offer, from business to tourism.
Karen?
Start by giving a shout out for Ben Williams, our ex-student, who's also at the Olympics in the triple jump. I think it's quite, I think some of the richness of Staffordshire is the diversity. And I think being a single description is really quite difficult to do. And I think certainly, you know, my neck of the woods in North Staffordshire is so different. The people are so different. The feel of the place is so different than, you know, south of the county. So I think that's quite a sort of challenge. I think there is this thing that I've mentioned about we need to punch above our weight a little bit more. We need to be more ambitious for ourselves. And we also, we've talked a lot today about the opportunities and, you know, training, fantastic jobs and careers, and that's great. But we also need to be an area that doesn't leave anybody behind. And, you know, our first question about remote learning and working, I've been really shocked about the disadvantage, you know, and I should know this, but how difficult it's been for people to connect, you know, the lack of technology devices, you know, a place to study because there's 5 other kids in, you know, the room. And I think we also should be that caring area. Final thing I'd say on that is that what I hear more and more now for young people about what they want, and almost the criticism of us as adults and older people, is they're very interested in the green agenda. And I think everything that we should do, you know, our new houses, the way that we live and work, travel, not travel, we ought to really try and grab that sort of green agenda idea and actually deliver it in our area, because I think that's very attractive to young people. It's their future.
Absolutely. I think that's pretty much brings us to the end, but one last question, which is a nice short one to end on. Everyone can answer this for us. If you had to go somewhere else where people had never heard of Staffordshire and you had to describe it to them, and they said, what's the best thing about Staffordshire? It is concise response as possible. What would everyone say? Martin?
I'd probably go with the pace of life. I think it's fast enough where you need it, and it's slow enough when you equally need that as well.
Excellent. Karen?
I think you're never more than 10 or 15 minutes away from something absolutely fantastic in terms of, you know, countryside. Very lucky.
Excellent. Emily?
I couldn't choose between the two. I think it's variety, so you can experience countryside and city and history and all the rest of it, but more than that, it's the people. I have never found warmer, more friendly, welcoming people, so I reckon it's the people.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Rob?
Well, it's a beautiful place full of beautiful people. We've got a strong heritage, but we're forward-looking as well.
Excellent. And Alan?
Come to Staffordshire. We've got everything on your doorstep.
Absolutely. Well, I think from those alone, I think we've certainly now got some food for thought for any future marketing campaigns. So, look, thanks everyone for your time today. Really, it was fascinating discussion and great to hear, so much from people who really know what they're talking about. And I think we will take it away and digest what was said, and it'll give us some really good ideas for where we take Staffordshire next. So, thank you everyone, and we'll see you all again.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Nice to see you all.
Thank you, everyone.